Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty and watched the stars through the main window. His ship was humanity's first vessel to travel between star systems. It had taken 3 years to reach this far from Earth. The crew was tired but excited. They were about to make history. "Captain, we have contact," said Commander Lisa Brooks from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer and one of the best pilots Jake had ever worked with. 3 ships approaching from the port side. There. Not human designs. Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. First contact with alien life. He had dreamed about this day since he was a child. "Put them on screen," Jake ordered. The main display showed 3 ships unlike anything humans had ever built. They were smooth and curved like flowing water. Bright blue lights ran along their hulls in patterns that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The ships moved without any visible engines or thrust. They simply glided through space as if they were swimming. "They're trying to communicate," reported Chief Petty Officer Ron Davis from the communications station. "The signal is coming through on multiple frequencies. It's complex, but our computers are working on translation." Jake straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the bridge. "Put me through when you can. This is what we came here for." On Earth, Fleet Admiral Harrison Cole sat in his office at Space Defense Headquarters. He was watching the live feed from the Liberty through a communication relay. The delay was almost 2 hours because of the distance, but he wanted to see everything. As it happened, next to him stood Colonel Amy Turner, his chief strategist. She was not as excited as the others. "Admiral, I don't like this. We know nothing about these aliens. They could be hostile." "They haven't fired on us yet," Harrison replied. "That's a good sign." "Maybe they're just studying us first," Amy said. "Like we study insects before we decide what to do with them." The translation software finally worked. A voice came through the Liberty's speakers. It was smooth and musical, like singing. "Greetings, unknown vessel. I am Admiral Zixthara of the Vegan Collective. We represent the Galactic Council. Please identify yourself." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United. Earth Ship Liberty. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We're explorers, and we hope to make friends with other civilizations." There was a pause. Then Admiral Zixthara spoke again. "Fascinating. You are using chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. How ... primitive. But you have achieved interstellar travel. Impressive for such a young species." Lisa Brooks raised an eyebrow at her station. She didn't like being called primitive, but she stayed quiet. The alien admiral continued. "We will escort you to a neutral meeting station. There, we can discuss your species' future in our galaxy." The 3 alien ships moved into formation around the Liberty. Jake noticed they kept their distance, and their weapons were not aimed at his ship. That was reassuring. The journey to the meeting station took 2 days. During that time, the aliens sent over technical data about their ships and weapons. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the mission scientist, studied the information with amazement. "Captain, look at this," she said, showing Jake a display. "They're weapons. Use-focused energy beams. They can destroy a ship from thousands of kilometers away. Their shields can stop almost any attack. And their ships are controlled by artificial intelligence that thinks faster than any human." Jake nodded slowly. "So we're outgunned." "Completely," Elena confirmed. "Our missiles and railguns look like stone axes compared to their technology." The meeting station was a massive structure that looked like a crystal flower floating in space. It was beautiful and clearly very advanced. The Liberty docked at one of the smaller ports, looking tiny next to the alien ships already there. Jake, Lisa, Elena, and Ron were invited aboard for the meeting. They walked through corridors that seemed to be made of living light. Everything was smooth and clean. There were no sharp edges anywhere. Even the air smelled like flowers. The meeting room was circular with a domed ceiling that showed the stars above. Around a large table sat representatives from different alien species. Some looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. Others were more unusual. One looked like a walking tree, another like a floating jellyfish. Admiral Zixthara was one of the blue-skinned beings. She stood as the humans entered. "Welcome to Kepler Station. Please sit. We have much to discuss." The humans took their seats. Jake noticed that all the chairs were designed for beings much larger than humans. They felt like children sitting at an adult table. "First," said Admiral Zixthara, "we must discuss your military capabilities. Your ships carry what you call nuclear missiles and kinetic weapons. These are ... concerning." "Concerning how?" Lisa asked. Another alien, who introduced himself as Sub-Admiral Quintala, answered. "Civilized warfare is conducted at long range with precise energy weapons. Casualties are minimal. Wars are won through superior technology and tactics, not through destruction." "But your weapons," continued Admiral Zixthara, "are designed to cause maximum damage. Your missiles carry nuclear warheads. Your railguns fire solid projectiles at incredible speed. These weapons cannot be precise. They only destroy," Jake tried to explain. "On Earth, we've learned that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. Our weapons exist to defend our homes and families." The aliens looked at each other with expressions the humans couldn't read. Finally, Admiral Zixthara spoke. "We understand your primitive thinking. This is why the Galactic Council exists. We will protect you. In return, you will follow our rules. No more weapons development, no more military expansion. We will handle all security matters in your region of space." Amy Turner's voice came through Jake's earpiece from Earth. Even with the delay, she had been listening to everything. "Don't agree to anything, Captain. They're trying to make us their pets." Jake stood up slowly. "Admiral, we appreciate your offer, but humanity has always chosen its own path. We'll need time to consider your proposal." The aliens seemed surprised. They had clearly expected immediate acceptance. "Of course," said Admiral Zixthara, though she didn't sound pleased. "But understand, Captain Morrison, that the galaxy is a dangerous place. There are pirates and raiders who would destroy your primitive ships easily. You need our protection." As if to prove her point, alarms suddenly began ringing throughout the station. A voice spoke over the communication system in the alien language. Admiral Zixthara's face changed color, becoming darker blue. "What's happening?" Jake asked. "Raiders," she replied grimly. "It seems you will see galactic warfare much sooner than expected." The alarms kept ringing as alien crew members ran through the corridors of Kepler Station. Jake Morrison and his team were quickly escorted to a secure observation deck where they could watch the battle that was about to begin. Through the massive windows, they saw the Raider fleet approaching. There were 12 ships, all different shapes and sizes. Some looked like they had been built from scrap metal. Others appeared to be stolen alien vessels with crude modifications welded to their hulls. "Those are Kethfes pirates, Admiral," Zixthara explained as she joined the humans at the window. "He's a notorious criminal who steals technology and attacks peaceful settlements. But don't worry, our defense fleet will handle this quickly." Jake watched as the alien defense fleet moved into position. 6 sleek ships formed a perfect line facing the incoming raiders. They moved with precise coordination, like dancers performing a rehearsed routine. "Admiral," said Sub-Admiral Quintala over the communication system, "we are in position, beginning long-range engagement." Bright beams of energy lanced out from the defense ships toward the raiders. The beams were beautiful, like colored lightning. Against the black of space, most of them hit their targets, causing small explosions on the raider ships. Direct hits, reported Quintala. The raiders should retreat now. But the raiders didn't retreat. Instead, they split into 3 groups and began moving in unexpected directions. Some ships dove below the plane of battle. Others climbed high. Above it, the remaining ships charged straight at the defense line. Unusual, muttered Admiral Zixthara. They should have surrendered by now. Lisa Brooks watched the battle with professional interest. As a tactical officer, she could see what was happening. Admiral, your ships are firing in straight lines. The raiders are using the 3rd dimension to avoid your shots. 3rd dimension? Zixthara looked confused. Up and down, Lisa explained. Your fleet is arranged on a flat plane, like ships on an ocean. But space has no up or down. The raiders are attacking from above and below, where your weapons can't track them easily. Jake saw the problem, too. The alien ships were incredibly advanced, but they fought like they were still on the surface of a planet. They thought in 2 dimensions, while the raiders thought in 3. One of the raider ships, a ugly vessel covered in spikes and armor plates, suddenly accelerated at impossible speed. It smashed directly into one of the defense ships. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Admiral Zixthara stepped backward in shock. They collided on purpose. That's insane. The pilot died for no reason. No, said Ron Davis quietly. He died to take out one of your ships. That's a suicide attack. We've seen them before on Earth. The battle was going badly for the aliens. Their precise long-range tactics weren't working against enemies who fought without rules. The raiders used captured alien weapons in ways they were never designed for. They overloaded energy systems to create bigger explosions. They modified shields to ram other ships. They even used debris from destroyed vessels as weapons. Sub-Admiral Quintala, request immediate assistance from the Galactic Fleet, Admiral Zixthara ordered. Admiral, Jake said, the Liberty is ready. To help, Zixthara looked at him with surprise. Captain, your primitive weapons cannot possibly. With respect, Jake interrupted. You're losing this fight. Let us try. After a moment of hesitation, Zixthara nodded. Very well, but stay back and observe. When your ship is destroyed, we will retreat. Jake smiled grimly. Admiral, you might be surprised. The UES Liberty undocked from Kepler Station and moved toward the battle. On the bridge, Lisa Brooks took her position at the tactical station, while Ron Davis handled communications. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the ship's systems. All stations report ready, Lisa announced. Jake sat in the captain's chair and studied the tactical display. The alien defense fleet was down to 4 ships. The raiders still had 9 vessels, though several were damaged. Lisa, what do you see? Lisa analyzed the enemy formation. Captain, they're using hit and run tactics. Fast attacks followed by retreat. But they have to come close to use their weapons effectively. If we can predict their attack pattern, do it. The Liberty moved unlike any ship the aliens had ever seen. Instead of the smooth, controlled movements of alien vessels, it darted and weaved through space like a fighter aircraft. Jake had trained his crew well. They thought like pilots, not like ship drivers. A raider ship came at them from above, diving down with weapons charging. Instead of turning to face it like an alien ship would do, the Liberty rolled to one side and fired its railgun as the raider passed by. The solid metal projectile punched through the raiders' shields like they weren't there. The aliens' energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not physical objects moving at incredible speed. The raider ship split in half. Impossible, whispered Admiral Zixthara from the station. How did they penetrate the shields? Doctor. Rodriguez monitored the alien communications and heard the question. Admiral, our railguns fire solid metal. Your shields stop energy, but they don't stop matter. Another raider ship attacked from the side. This time, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker led a boarding party. The Liberty moved close enough to extend docking tubes, something no civilized ship would ever attempt during combat. "Steve, you have 30 seconds before we have to move." Jake warned. Steve Parker and his Marines crossed into the raider ship through the docking tube. The pirates weren't expecting orders. They were used to fighting at long range with energy weapons. When humans in combat armor came charging through their corridors with assault rifles and grenades, they panicked. The boarding action lasted only 3 minutes. Steve's team captured the raider ship's control center and turned its weapons against the other pirates. Chief Engineer Rachel Miller had been watching the battle and studying the alien technology. She called up to the bridge with an idea. "Captain, I can modify our missiles to penetrate their shields." "How?" "The aliens use energy to create their shields, but energy follows patterns. If I can match the frequency of their shield generators, our missiles should pass right through." "Do it." Rachel worked quickly, reprogramming the missile's guidance systems. When the next raider attack came, the Liberty fired 3 modified missiles at once. The raiders tried to block the missiles with their shields, but the weapons passed through like the shields weren't there. All 3 missiles hit their target. The raider ship disappeared in a nuclear fireball. The remaining pirates had seen enough. They turned and fled at maximum speed, leaving their dead behind. Admiral Zixthara was silent for a long time as she watched the human ship return to the station. Finally, she spoke to her aide. "Contact the Galactic Council immediately. Tell them we have a problem." "What kind of problem, Admiral?" Zixthara looked at the UES Liberty docking with the station. The human ship was scarred and blackened from battle, but it was intact. Her own defense fleet had lost 2 ships and suffered heavy damage. "The humans fight like the Ravagers," she said quietly. "They use physical weapons. They board enemy ships. They sacrifice themselves to win. They break every rule of civilized warfare. But, Admiral, they saved us." "That's what makes them dangerous," Zixthara replied. "They're not evil. They're not trying to conquer anyone. They simply don't understand that there are limits to war. To them, any tactic that wins is acceptable." Jake Morrison and his crew returned to the observation deck. They looked tired but satisfied. They had proven that human tactics could work against advanced alien technology. "Well done, Captain," Admiral Zixthara said formally. "Your tactics were effective." "Thank you, Admiral. We're glad we could help." But Zixthara wasn't thinking about gratitude. She was thinking about what would happen if humans ever decided to use their tactics against the Galactic Council. The thought made her feel cold, despite the warm air of the station. The humans had just demonstrated that advanced technology meant nothing if you didn't know how to use it properly. They had shown that sometimes the primitive solution was the best solution. For the first time in thousands of years, a member of the Galactic Council was afraid of war. High Chancellor Vexandra stood at the center of the Grand Council chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime. Around her, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats. The chamber was a marvel of engineering, with each section designed for the specific needs of its occupants. Some areas were filled with water for aquatic species. Others had different atmospheric mixtures. A few sections existed in different gravitational fields, but today, all attention was focused on the holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the battle at Kepler Station, recorded from multiple angles by the station's sensors. "Council members," Vexandra began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "We face an unprecedented situation. The species known as humans has demonstrated combat capabilities that violate every principle of civilized warfare. Agent Zilmoth, the Council's chief intelligence officer, activated his datapad. He was a tall, gray-skinned being with 4 arms and large black eyes. The humans use kinetic weapons that bypass our standard shielding. They employ boarding tactics that put soldiers at extreme risk. Most disturbing, they show complete willingness to sacrifice their own lives to achieve victory. A representative from the Aquarian Federation raised a tentacle. Agent Zilmuth, surely you exaggerate. No civilized being would willingly die in combat when surrender is an option. I have reviewed the data multiple times, Zilmuth replied. During the boarding action, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker and his team entered an enemy vessel, while under fire, they had no guarantee of survival. On Earth, such actions are considered heroic rather than insane. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. The idea of voluntary sacrifice for military gain was alien to most council species. War for them was a precise art form with strict rules. Casualties were minimal because both sides understood. That life was precious. High Chancellor Vexandra gestured for silence. Admiral Zixthara has prepared a full report. Admiral, please address the council. Admiral Zixthara appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber. She looked tired and worried. Honored counselors, I have observed human combat tactics firsthand. They fight with a ferocity that I have only read about in historical texts about the Ravager Wars. The mention of the Ravagers caused a stir throughout the chamber. The Ravager Wars had ended 3,000 years ago with the complete extinction of a species that had threatened the entire galaxy. Most modern beings knew of them only through legend. Admiral, said the representative from the Centauri Alliance, surely you don't suggest that humans are as dangerous as the Ravagers? No, Counselor. The humans are not evil like the Ravagers were, but their methods are similar. They see war as a contest of wills rather than a game of technology. They adapt quickly to new situations. Most importantly, they refuse to surrender, even when defeat seems certain. On Earth, Admiral Harrison Cole sat in his office reading reports from the Liberty's mission. Colonel Amy Turner stood beside his desk, studying intelligence data that the aliens had shared about galactic military capabilities. Amy, what's your assessment? Harrison asked. Sir, we're completely outgunned in terms of raw technology. There. Energy weapons are more powerful than anything we have. Their shields can stop our standard missiles. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than ours. But, Amy smiled grimly, but they fight like they're afraid to get hurt. They keep their distance. They follow predictable patterns. They surrender too easily. In a real war, we could use that against them. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Harrison said. But privately, he was already thinking about how to defend Earth if the aliens decided humans were too dangerous to live. Back on Nexus Prime. The council debate continued. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been invited to address the assembly via hologram from the Liberty. She stood nervously before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Honored counselors, Elena began, I believe there's been a misunderstanding about human nature. We're not a warlike species. We prefer peace. But our history has taught us that sometimes peace can only be preserved through strength. Dr. Rodriguez, said High Chancellor Vexandra, your species has fought wars continuously throughout your recorded history. How is this not warlike? Elena had prepared for this question. Chancellor, we fight because we care about freedom. Every major human war has been about protecting people from those who would enslave or destroy them. We don't fight for conquest. We fight for survival. But your methods, interrupted the representative from the Silicon Collective, are unnecessarily destructive. Why use nuclear weapons when precise energy beams would accomplish the same goal with less collateral damage? Because precision weapons require you to be precise, Elena replied. In war, you don't always have that luxury. Sometimes you have to hit hard and fast to protect innocent people. Sometimes overwhelming force is the only thing that stops a truly evil enemy. The council members exchanged looks of concern. The human concept of overwhelming force was disturbing to species that had evolved beyond physical aggression. Captain Jake Morrison was also invited to speak. He appeared via hologram alongside Elena. Counselors, we don't want to fight anyone. We came to the stars looking for friends, not enemies. But we won't be enslaved or controlled, even by well-meaning allies. Captain Morrison, said Agent Zilmuth, the Council offers protection and guidance. Why do you see this as enslavement? Jake thought carefully before answering. Agent, imagine if someone told you that you could never make another decision. For yourself. That every choice about your future would be made by others who know better than you do. How would that feel? Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The human argument was more sophisticated than they had expected. The debate was interrupted by urgent communication from the frontier sectors. Captain Morrison's small fleet, now consisting of 5 human ships, had been participating in joint training exercises with alien forces. The exercises were not going well. War Marshal Caxthu appeared as an emergency hologram. He was a massive armored being from a warrior species that served as the Council's primary military force. Even his people were considered aggressive by galactic standards, but they followed the rules of civilized warfare. High Chancellor, Caxtul reported, the joint exercises have become impossible to continue. The humans consistently break the established rules of engagement. Explain, Alexandra ordered. In the first exercise, we simulated a defense scenario. The human ships were supposed to maintain formation and engage at long range. Instead, they scattered and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. They ignored our battle plans completely. Captain Morrison's image flickered as he received the transmission on the Liberty. War Marshal, those tactics worked. We achieved all the exercise objectives by cheating. Caxtul roared. You used suicide runs. You rammed disabled ships. You launched boarding pods during a space battle. We did what was necessary to win, Morrison replied calmly. But winning isn't the point. Caxtul was clearly frustrated. The point is to demonstrate proper military procedure. Jake looked confused. War Marshal, if the point isn't to win, then what's the point of fighting at all? The question hung in the air like a challenge. None of the alien military officers could answer it. For them, war was a complex ritual with precise rules and predictable outcomes. The idea of fighting to actually win, regardless of rules, was foreign to their thinking. Dr. Kevin Wright, the Liberty's chief engineer, had been quietly studying alien technology during the exercises. His report added another layer of concern to the Council's deliberations. Counselors, Kevin said via hologram, I've been analyzing the weapons and shield systems we've observed. With some modifications, human technology could be significantly more effective than current galactic standard equipment. How so? Asked the representative from the Vegan Collective. Your energy weapons are very precise, but they require a lot of power and have limited range. Our missiles can carry much larger warheads over greater distances. Your shields stop energy attacks, but they're vulnerable to physical projectiles. If we combined our kinetic weapons with your energy technology, Kevin didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications were clear. Humans weren't just good at war, they were good at improving weapons. High Chancellor Vexandra called for a recess. The council members needed time to discuss what they had learned. As the chamber emptied, small groups formed to debate the human situation. The consensus was troubling. Humans represented something the galaxy had not seen for thousands of years. A species that treated war as a means to an end, rather than as an end in itself. They fought to win, not to follow rules. They adapted quickly to new technology and improved it in unexpected ways. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the intellectual challenge of combat. Where other species saw war as a necessary evil, humans appeared to view it as a complex puzzle to be solved. When the council reconvened, High Chancellor Vexandra announced their decision. The human species will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. However, their military activities will be closely monitored. Any sign of aggressive expansion or weapon development beyond acceptable parameters will result in immediate intervention. Captain Morrison nodded respectfully. The archaeological site on Kepler 186f looked like nothing special from orbit. It was just another dead world with ancient ruins scattered across its surface. But Dr. Elena Rodriguez knew that some of the most important discoveries in Galactic history had started with unremarkable places like this. She stood in the main excavation, pit alongside Prime Researcher Nith Olin, the galaxy's leading expert on pre-council civilizations. The alien scientist was tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the planet's pale sunlight. Around them, human and alien researchers worked together to uncover structures that had been buried for thousands of years. Dr. Rodriguez, Nith Olin said, pointing to a series of carved symbols on a stone wall. These markings are unlike anything we've found before. They appear to be technical diagrams. Elena studied the carvings with her scanner. The device translated the ancient language and displayed the results on her datapad. What she saw made her freeze. Nith Olin, these aren't just technical diagrams. They're weapon blueprints. The alien researcher moved closer to examine Elena's scanner. His silver skin darkened as he read the translation. Kinetic bombardment. Systems. Biological weapon delivery methods. Ship designs optimized for ramming attacks. He looked at Elena with concern. These are human-style weapons. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's cold atmosphere. Not human-style. These ruins are thousands of years old. Humans were still using stone tools when these were built. Captain Morrison had brought the Liberty to orbit above the archaeological site. Master Sergeant Chris Bell led the security team that was protecting the excavation. Chris was a tough Marine who had seen action in several conflicts on Earth. Nothing usually bothered him, but this place felt wrong. Captain, Chris reported over the radio, the ruins go deeper than we thought. We found what looks like an underground complex, but there's something strange about it. Strange how? Morrison asked from the bridge. The corridors are the right size for humans. The door controls are at human height. It's like this place was built for people our size. Morrison felt uneasy. He had learned to trust Chris Bell's instincts about danger. Be careful down there. Sergeant, don't touch anything you don't understand. But it was too late for caution. Deep in the underground complex, the excavation team had activated something they didn't recognize. Ancient systems that had been dormant for millennia began to wake up. Lights flickered on in corridors that had been dark since before human civilization. Dr. Kevin Wright was examining some of the newly activated technology when the downloading began. He was alone in a chamber filled with strange machines when suddenly every screen in the room came to life. Symbols and diagrams flashed by faster than he could read them. What the ... Kevin started to say, but then he felt something touch his mind. The ancient computer system had detected his presence and identified him as compatible with its original users. It began downloading tactical and technical information directly into his brain through his neural interface implant. The process was not designed for human minds, but it worked anyway. Kevin screamed as thousands of years of military knowledge forced its way into his head. Battle tactics, weapon designs, and strategic concepts that had been lost to history flooded his consciousness. He collapsed to the floor as his implant overloaded. Chris Bell heard the scream and ran toward Kevin's location. He found the engineer unconscious on the floor, surrounded by active alien machinery. Chris didn't hesitate. He grabbed Kevin and dragged him out of the chamber, but not before the ancient systems had finished their download. On the surface, Elena and Nitholin were making their own disturbing discovery. They had found a historical record that explained who had built the complex and why it had been buried. The Ravagers, Nitholin whispered as he read the translated text. This was one of their research facilities. Elena looked at the alien scientist with confusion. I thought the Ravagers were destroyed completely. No ruins, no survivors, no trace of their civilization. That's what we believed, Nitholin replied. The official records say that every Ravager world was sterilized. Every ship was destroyed. Every piece of their technology was eliminated to prevent their weapons from ever being used again. But this place survived, hidden underground on a world that was considered worthless. The Council's forces missed it during the final campaign. Elena read more of the historical record. The story it told was horrifying. The Ravagers had been a species much like humans, intelligent, adaptable, and willing to use any tactic necessary. To win, they had developed weapons that other species considered barbaric. They fought total wars where entire planets were, destroyed rather than captured. The galaxy had united against them in a war that lasted over a century. The final victory had come only after the Council species had overcome their reluctance to use extreme measures. The Ravager home system had been destroyed by causing its star to go supernova. The explosion had sterilized a dozen nearby systems to ensure that no Ravager technology survived. Elena, Nitholin said quietly, the Council will want to destroy this place immediately. If they learn that Ravager technology still exists, Alina understood. The discovery would terrify the galactic government. They had spent 3,000 years believing that the threat of total war had been eliminated forever. Learning that Ravager weapons still existed would cause panic among species that had forgotten how to fight for survival. But it was too late. To keep the discovery secret, Admiral Harrison Cole had been monitoring the mission from Earth, and his intelligence officers had been analyzing all communications from the archaeological site. Colonel Amy Turner burst into Harrison's office with a datapad in her hand. Admiral, you need to see this immediately. Harrison read the report and felt his blood turn cold. Are you telling me that there's an ancient weapons cache on that planet? Not just weapons, sir. Military technology that the aliens thought they had destroyed. And based on the preliminary reports, it's compatible with human equipment. Harrison stood up and walked to the window that overlooked Earth's orbital shipyards. Construction crews were working on 3 new ships that would join the growing human fleet. The ships were designed with lessons learned from the battle at Kepler Station, combining human tactics with improved alien technology. Amy, if the Council learns about this discovery, what will they do? They'll panic, sir. Then they'll probably decide that humans are too dangerous to live. Harrison nodded grimly. He had been expecting this moment since first contact. The aliens had been nervous about human military capabilities from the beginning. Discovery of ancient weapons that matched human fighting methods would confirm their worst fears. Get me a secure channel to Captain Morrison, and start implementing Defense Plan Alpha. On Kepler 186F, Kevin Wright was conscious again, but he was changed. The download had given him knowledge that no human was supposed to possess. He understood weapon systems that had been forgotten for millennia. He could see tactical possibilities that had never occurred to human military planners. Captain, Kevin said into his communicator, we need to evacuate this site immediately. But first, I need to copy as much data as possible from these systems. Negative, Morrison replied. We're not stealing alien technology. Sir, this isn't alien technology. Not exactly. These weapons were designed by a species that fought like we do. They're human compatible. If the Council decides we're a threat, this technology might be the only thing that can protect Earth. Morrison was quiet for a moment. He understood the dilemma. Taking the technology would confirm alien suspicions about human intentions. But leaving it might mean watching Earth be destroyed by species who saw humans as a danger to galactic peace. Decision was made for him. Long-range sensors detected ships approaching the system. They weren't Council vessels. The energy signatures matched pirate ships, and they were led by a familiar signal. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker from the sensor station. "It's Kethver. He's brought a bigger fleet this time. 15 ships, including some heavy cruisers." Morrison realized that the pirate lord had followed the same intelligence. Reports that had led the archaeological expedition to this world. Kethver knew about the ancient weapons, and he wanted them for himself. "All teams, return to the ship immediately," Morrison ordered. "Chris, get Kevin and Dr. Rodriguez out of there now." But Master Sergeant Bell had already made his own decision. He was a Marine, trained to secure valuable objectives from enemy forces. The ancient weapons represented a threat to Earth if they fell into the wrong hands. "Captain, I'm staying behind with a small team. We'll hold the site until reinforcements arrive. Sergeant, that's suicide. You can't fight 15 ships with a squad of Marines." Chris Bell looked at the ancient weapon systems that Kevin had managed to activate. Some of them were still functional. The installation's defensive systems were coming online as the Ravager computer detected approaching enemies. "Sir, I don't plan to fight 15 ships. I plan to let the Ravagers fight them for me." As Kethver's fleet entered orbit, they found the U.E.'s Liberty accelerating toward the edge of the system. The pirates ignored the escaping human ship and concentrated on the planet below. Their sensors had detected massive energy buildups in the underground sea. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. High Chancellor Vexandra stood before the assembled representatives with news that would change the galaxy forever. "Council members," she announced, "our worst fears have been confirmed. The humans have discovered and activated Ravager technology on Kepler 186F. Intelligence reports indicate they have downloaded tactical data and weapon blueprints that were thought destroyed 3,000 years ago." War Marshal Caxthul stepped forward. His massive form was covered in ceremonial armor that bore the scars of a dozen campaigns. "High Chancellor, the Ravager threat nearly destroyed galactic civilization once before. We cannot allow history to repeat itself." Around the chamber, representatives from 47 species voiced their agreement. The memory of the Ravager Wars was burned into galactic consciousness. Stories were still told of entire star systems sterilized by weapons. Too terrible to describe. Children learned about the war as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unlimited aggression. "The decision is unanimous," Vexandra declared. "Humanity must be contained before they can spread Ravager technology throughout the galaxy. War Marshal Caxthul, you will command the largest fleet in galactic history. This threat ends now." On Earth, Admiral Harrison Cole stood in the command center of Space Defense Headquarters. Around him, officers coordinated the defense of humanity's home system. The holographic display showed the positions of Earth's entire space fleet, 23 ships against more than 1,000 alien vessels approaching from multiple directions. Colonel Amy Turner stood beside Harrison, studying intelligence reports from their deep space monitoring stations. "Admiral, the alien fleet is massive. They have ships from every major Council species. Energy weapons, drone swarms, planet-killer missiles. Everything they need to sterilize the entire solar system." Harrison nodded grimly. He had known this. Day would come since first contact. "Amy, Activate Defense Plan Omega. Send the message to all human colonies and research stations. If Earth falls, they are to scatter and hide. Humanity will survive, even if we don't. In the Vega system, the human fleet made its last stand. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after the events at Kepler 186F, commanded from the bridge of the U.E.S. Defiance. The ship was humanity's newest and most advanced vessel, built with lessons learned from studying alien technology and ancient Ravager blueprints. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Brooks from her ship, the U.E.S. Vengeance, the alien fleet has entered the system. "My God, Jake, there are so many of them." Jake studied the tactical display. Over 1,000 alien ships were arranging themselves in perfect formation. They moved with the precision of a military parade, following battle plans that had been perfected over centuries of civilized warfare. "All ships, remember your training," Jake announced over the fleet communication system. "We're not here to follow their rules. We're here to protect Earth and show the galaxy that humans will never surrender." Colonel Amy Turner commanded the U.E.S. Retribution, her ship loaded with experimental weapons based on Ravager technology. Commander Kevin Wright was aboard the U.E.S. Innovation, his mind still processing the tactical knowledge he had gained from the ancient computers. The battle began with the aliens' traditional long-range bombardment. Hundreds of energy beams lanced across space toward the human fleet. The humans responded by doing something no civilized species would attempt. They charged straight into the enemy formation. "All ships close to ramming distance," Jake ordered. "Make them afraid to fight us." The alien fleet was designed for precise, long-range combat. When the human ships plunged into their midst, firing kinetic weapons and launching boarding pods, their careful formations collapsed into chaos. Captain Foster commanded the U.E.S. Striker, using Ravager hit-and-run tactics that confused the alien targeting systems. His ship would appear from behind an asteroid, fire a salvo of missiles, and disappear before the aliens could respond effectively. Commander Wright's ship carried the most experimental technology. His weapons could overload alien shields by matching their frequency patterns, while his modified engines allowed impossible maneuvers that violated every principle of safe spaceflight. But the humans were still outnumbered 50-1. One by one, their ships took damage. The U.E.S. Vengeance lost its main engines and began fighting with just maneuvering thrusters. The U.E.S. Retribution's hull was breached in 3 places, forcing Amy Turner's crew to fight in spacesuits. Caxtool watched the battle from his flagship with growing concern. His fleet was winning, but the cost was higher than expected. The humans were using tactics that reminded him of ancient nightmares his species had tried to forget. "Marshal," reported his tactical officer, "we've lost 47 ships. The humans are targeting our command vessels specifically. They're ignoring military protocol and attacking our leadership directly." Caxtool had never seen anything like it. Civilized warfare protected command ships because destroying leadership led to unnecessary chaos. But the humans were deliberately creating chaos, using it as a weapon against forces that depended on order and coordination. The turning point came when Admiral Morrison realized that his fleet couldn't win through conventional tactics, even unconventional ones. The aliens had too many ships and too much firepower. Earth needed a different kind of victory. "All ships, implement Plan Omega-7, Jake ordered. Plan Omega-7 was humanity's most desperate tactic. It had been developed by military planners who studied not just Ravager technology, but Ravager psychology. The ancient species had understood something that modern galactic civilization had forgotten. Sometimes the threat of total destruction was more powerful than destruction itself. The U's Defiance, heavily damaged and running on backup power, began accelerating toward the alien flagship. Jake had loaded his ship with every nuclear weapon in the human arsenal. If he could get close enough to detonate them all at once, the explosion would destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers. Admiral Morrison, War Marshal Caxthul, called over the communication system. You cannot seriously intend to ram my flagship. The collision will destroy both vessels. You'll die for nothing. Jake appeared on the alien ship's main screen. His uniform was torn, and his face was bloody from a console explosion, but his eyes were steady. Marshal, you don't understand humans at all. We don't die for nothing. We die to protect everything we love. Caxthul watched in horror as the human ship continued its collision course. Around him, his officers called for evasive action, but the Marshal was frozen by a realization that changed everything. The humans weren't trying to win this battle. They were demonstrating that they would rather die than surrender. Every ship in the alien fleet was watching a species choose extinction over slavery. All ships cease fire, Caxthul ordered. Marshal? His tactical officer asked in confusion. Cease. Fire immediately. Signal retreat. The alien fleet began withdrawing from the Vega system, leaving the battered human ships behind. Jake Morrison's suicide run had failed, not because it couldn't destroy the alien flagship, but because the aliens couldn't bring themselves to watch an entire species choose death over defeat. 3 days later, Admiral Morrison received a message from High Chancellor Vexandra. The communication was brief and formal. Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council hereby recognizes the United Earth Federation as a sovereign member state with full military autonomy. Council observers will be assigned to human vessels to facilitate cooperation, but human ships will no longer be subject to galactic weapons restrictions. Jake read the message to his senior officers on the bridge of the rebuilt Defiance. They had won, but none of them felt like celebrating. Admiral, asked Captain Brooks, why did they give up? They had us beaten. Jake thought about War Marshal Caxthul's final transmission before the alien fleet had retreated. The alien commander had said something that explained everything. We came here to prevent another Ravager war, but you've shown us that the Ravagers never really died. They just waited 3,000 years to be reborn as humans. Lisa, Jake said finally, they didn't give up because they couldn't beat us. They gave up because they realized that beating us would require them to become like us. The galaxy spent 3,000 years learning how to fight civilized wars. We just reminded them what uncivilized war looks like. 6 months later, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy peace. Human ships patrolled the Outer Rim territories, dealing with pirates and raiders that the civilized species couldn't handle. The aliens maintained their distance, treating humans with the same careful respect they might show a sleeping predator. Captain Morrison, now commanding a mixed crew of humans and aliens, explored the galaxy's unknown regions. His ship represented a new kind of cooperation, one built on mutual respect rather than patronizing protection. As they discovered new worlds and faced new threats, the galaxy watched to see whether humanity would become its greatest protector or its most dangerous enemy. The humans themselves weren't sure of the answer, but they knew one thing for certain. They would never again allow anyone to decide their fate for them. The galaxy had learned that human warships were indeed too perilous for galactic warfare, not because they were superior, but because they represented something the universe had all